Hello and welcome to episode 13 of the Little Craft Room podcast. My name's Nicola. I run a little craft room many places on the internet, most social media kind of platforms, and some of them are below for you to find. It's been a while. So for those of you who are new, welcome. For those of you returning, welcome back. This is just my little podcast where I talk about knitting, I talk about crochet, I talk about the things that I've been making, finishing, not finishing sometimes. But yeah, it's been a little bit of a while since my last one. I took a break over the Christmas and New Year because I always end up really, really busy around that time of year. So it was really nice to kind of do the normal festive things, go and see family and just kind of chill a little bit. So yeah, it's been a few weeks. It does mean I have loads of things I can talk about with you. So I'm pretty much just going to launch straight in, to be honest. I have my tea, as usual, ready in this mug that I got for Christmas. Perfectly on trend. So I had actually seen this type of mug before. I've got like a tall blue one that's more of a like a different shape, but I really liked this one as well. So I've got my tea ready. It's a little hot yet, but I will be sipping on that throughout. And I'm going to be drinking, it's Tea in the Gang, the Romantic, I believe that one is. I think it's like strawberry and vanilla or something along those lines, but I think it's called the Romantic. But I really like this kind of tea. So it may first appear that I am not wearing a finished object this week, but if you thought that, you'd be wrong, because I am indeed wearing a finished object. So I did mention on my last one that I had some plans over Christmas and New Year to potentially try and get like a little project that was just going to be done in that week, and I achieved it. So this is the Augustin bow. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not sure whether it's Augustin or Augustin. I know that different places pronounce it different ways, but I love it. I love it so much. So I do have a little picture because I'm not going to spend the entire time with my back to you. So I am really, really happy with this, actually. It really didn't take very long at all. It took a day. So when I was sat there going, I hope I can do it in the week between Christmas and New Year, it took literally about 24 hours. So there were no problems with that at all. The pattern is by Augustin. The actual designer's name is Anne-Sophie Velling. Sorry, wrong way around. Anne-Sophie Velling. So Augustin on Ravelry. I'm assuming other places as well. I think she's the same on Instagram, but I know that I got this from Ravelry. And when making this, I actually have the leftovers here. I used some Along the Vecana yarn. I've been dying to try that yarn for quite a while, and I thought this was going to be the perfect excuse to use it, and I did. So it was the Along the Vecana Merino and Silk Mohair, both in the colour Louvre, and they blended together so perfectly. It's not the recommended yarn for this pattern, but it might as well be, because I think the fibre content is near, if not identical. It's merino and kid silk or a silk mohair held together. So actually, in terms of kind of comparison to the original recommended fibre, it's almost a 1-to-1, and it worked perfectly for my bow, which I'm really, really happy about. One of the things I particularly like about this pattern is the edges of the bow. I just find the edges really satisfying. They're just so sharp and clean, and it's lovely to look at. So I was really chuffed with those. It was quite a quick pattern to make. It was really nice and clear. There were diagrams throughout it so that you could see what the next thing she was asking you to do was. And I would say the only time consuming aspect of it really was the fact that even though you are using two yarns held together, there are quite a lot of stitches. I can't remember the exact number, but it's like over 200, I think, in the initial round that you're working in. So I would say that's the most time consuming part, as well as when you're finishing off the edges, you do end up picking up stitches all the way around as well. So you're going around and picking up around 200 stitches. So that was a little time consuming. I very, very nearly cheated. I will be totally honest with you. Part of me, I saw what she wanted me to do next, and I saw that it was picking up stitches to knit it closed. And part of me went, I could just sew that. I could definitely just sew that closed. And I had to stop myself, and I was like, no, Nicola, do it properly. You know, come on, do it properly, because if yours isn't as neat, you won't undo it, and you full well I wouldn't undo it. I would just kind of grumble constantly about the fact that it wasn't as neat. So I thought, no, I'll just go straight in and I'll do it properly first time. And it has worked. So I'm really, really happy. I'm really glad that I did it properly. Because I don't cheat a lot. But sometimes when I look at a pattern and I know that there's a slightly simpler way to do it, sometimes I can be a little bit at risk of trying to cut the corner. But I didn't. I did it properly. And I'm really happy with it. I just wish I could see what it looked like from the back. I'm going to have to watch this podcast back. So yeah, I'm really happy with it. I love wearing it in my hair as well. I've had this in my hair all day, so apologies if it's not the neatest. This hair hasn't been redone since this morning, and today I've been rained on, I've been hailed on, I've been snowed on. So actually the fact that it's as neat as it is quite impressive, to be honest. But actually, you know, the bow has held up. It is attached. You can't see it in the photo, but there is a bobble, a hairband, whatever you call it. I call it a bobble. It's actually attached to the back of the bow, so it's really, really easy to pop in your hair. But it's not knitted in as part of the pattern, which I really liked, because my first concern was, what if the bobble snaps? You know, am I going to have to cut it out? Am I going to have to go through some really horrific process to try and replace a bobble? Because, you know, we all know that they sometimes can and do snap. And if you've got hair, my hair's stupidly thick, and it takes quite a force to hold it sometimes. So, I mean, I'm always carrying bobbles on my wrist, and that one's about to snap. So I thought, if this snaps, have I basically rendered it useless? Am I going to need to cut a hole in it? And thankfully the answer is no. So the join that kind of holds the bow shape in place is how the bobble is tied in. So all I would have to do is just replace that kind of middle section that is holding the bow shape together, and that would be all the tweaking I would need to do, which was such a relief, because the last thing I would have wanted to do would be to cut anything out to replace that. And I think if that were the case, I'd have been at risk of not wearing it as much, which is a shame because it's so beautiful. But it's not a problem, so I'm going to wear it all the time, and I'm very excited to just keep wearing it. I had quite a few comments on it today, actually. Some of the students at school were like, "Oh, miss, have you made that?" Oh, of course I have. You know me by now. So yeah, they're well aware that I do all my knitting and crochet. So yeah, some of the students even commented on it, which was lovely. But yeah, I'm really happy with this. I do have the yarn somewhere for a second. I think it's in one of my bags over there. I did show it on the last podcast. It's like a dark red colour, exactly the same along with Vacana Merino and silk mohair. Can't remember the colourway name for that one, but yeah, it's like a lovely dark red, because I seem to wear dark reds quite a lot at work. I don't know why. It just seems to be a colour a lot of my work clothes have gravitated towards, completely unintentionally, but hey ho. So I feel like a dark red would go with actually quite a lot of the outfits I wear for work. So whenever I get round to it, I don't know when that'll be, because I have so many things that I want to do at the moment, but whenever I get round to it, I'm going to do a red one. I'm hoping it's going to be soon, because like I said, this literally took me a day. Granted, it was a day in the school holidays, so I didn't have to do all that much else, but in theory it shouldn't be too hard to motivate myself to make another one because it was such a quick project. We will see. So there we go. Featured pattern for this week. The Augustin bow by Anne Sophie Velling. I keep going to get her name the wrong way around. I'm so sorry. Anne Sophie Velling, designer, designs under Augustins on at least Ravelry and Instagram, possibly all the other platforms as well. Probably all the other platforms as well. So I'm going to go straight into finished objects now because, I mean, technically I'm already in finished objects because I finished this since the last podcast, but I have some more that I can show you. So these next ones are another one that were started and finished since the last podcast. This is something I actually got for Christmas, so it's kind of an acquisition as well as a finished object. Oh, let's get rid of the bow. There we go. So an acquisition as well as a finished project. I originally got this in November. November, when me and my mum's friend went to Stitch Fest Southwest, and when I expressed an interest in this object, my mum bought it for me there and then as a Christmas present. So I knew it was coming, but didn't get it until Christmas. And actually it's going to come in quite useful this week because we've suddenly had a bit of a cold snap. But it is a pair of hand warmers. And when I say I finished them, I mean this was literally last night. I finished, which one? That one I finished last night. That was the second one. So they have been blocking since yesterday. They are just about dry, I think. I'm trying to tell whether it's cold or wet. I think they're just about dry. I'll put them on so that you can see the full pattern because there's a little bit of a cabling effect. So it's something that you only really get the full effect of when they are worn. But I am really happy with these, and I will show you. Oh yeah, they've blocked really nicely actually. This is the first time I've kind of put them on since blocking, so this is as much of a reveal for me as it is for you. But there we go. So you can see they've got quite a nice kind of 3 cable effect, 2 kind of smaller ones running down the side, and then kind of a big one that keeps cinching in as you go up, and I really quite like that actually. So these hand warmers, like I said, they were originally bought in November at Stitch Fest Southwest from the Knitting Gift Shop. So they had a stall there where they were selling the kit, so I got the pattern and the yarn. In fact I still have the pattern here. It's still out because I literally finished them last night. So it's, you know, not a huge pattern, it's just a little booklet, but it comes in that. And I still actually have some of the yarn left. I didn't end up using it all, so it comes with 2 kind of mini I think these were 25 gram little bundles. I don't even know whether I can call it a skein really. But yeah, it came with 2 of those, and they had a few colour selections as well, which was really nice. And I very nearly got the blue, and I stopped myself because I have so many things in blue. I was like, no, let's push the boat out, let's do something a little bit different. So I went for green, and I'm quite glad I did actually. I'm really loving this. I really like how this colour's turned out. Oh yeah, I think I'm going to be wearing these tomorrow, as long as they definitely are dry. I think they're dry, but I'm already so happy with these. So yes, these are made. So the yarn is also from the Knitting Gift Shop. So, you know, it's their own, I'm assuming it's their own yarn. I struggled to find much information about this shop on Ravelry. I did have a look. There are some bits on there, but it's quite limited. I found the yarn's on there. So this is Shades of Weardale. It's merino 4-ply, and this colour was just called green, but I couldn't find the pattern on Ravelry. So I've logged it on as one of my projects anyway, but it isn't kind of linked to a project, which is a shame, because I always really like the fact that I can go and look at other people's versions of it. You know, if they've left any comments, you know, stuff that they found they had to do when they made it. I find that very, very useful. But hey ho, not everybody likes putting their stuff on Ravelry, so that's just one of those things. But yeah, I'm really happy with these. They're quite, the needle size was quite small. In fact, was that? Yeah, this was the needle. I think these are 3s. I think it was a 3mm needle, because I had to use one of my fixed ones. Oh, I can't tell, the little labels rubbed off. But yeah, I think it was a 3mm needle. In fact, wow, just look in here. 3mm needle. Look at that. You can tell I've been back to school because my brain's semi-functional at the moment. So yeah, I used a 3mm needle. It does say double points, but I've made my feelings on double points very clear. If you like double points, fair play, you know, all credit to you, but I just can't do it. They hate me, I hate them. It's a mutual hatred. Let's just leave it there. So I used a circular needle, but it works perfectly well with a circular needle. I just use magic loop method. So because it's such a small project, I mean, I say such a small, it's probably about a sock kind of size really, but I'm not used to knitting on socks very much. So this was a little fiddly for somebody who's not used to doing such small scale projects, but still definitely manageable. The cables, I'm putting quotation marks in there because you don't need a cable needle at all. There are some instances where you'll swap 1 and 1 stitch. So I tend to prefer to do those without a cable needle if I can help it. So it still counts as a cable really, doesn't it? Yeah. Let's not discount some small cables. But yeah, I don't use cable needles if I can help it. I only tend to use them when I'm swapping over quite a number of stitches. And that's just out of necessity really. That's because I'm just terrified of dropping some of my stitches, because when it comes to cables I just don't want to have to try and fix it, because bleh, no, I'd rather not if I didn't have to. But yes, back to the gloves. So yes, they're made in shades of Weardale from the Knitting Gift Shop. It says merino, so I don't know whether there's, like I said, I found very limited information. I think it is just merino. Find out, I suppose. But yeah, I'm so looking forward to wearing these because I can already feel how warm these are. It's great. It was quite nice. It was quite a nice quick make as well. So obviously I hadn't started these before Christmas because I only got them at Christmas. They took a total of 10 days for both of them. It was not an even split. This one took me 7 days and that one took me 3. It's one of those things. Sometimes I do find the second one goes faster. I think once you've kind of figured out what you need to do and the general construction, because you've basically done the first one. I don't want to call it a practice run because, you know, it's not exactly a throwaway, but you have kind of already had a go at it. So doing the second one, you're more familiar with it, you know what's coming up. So I find I can just get on with it for the second one. But yeah, so this one I cast on Saturday and finished, what day are we on? Wednesday. I finished the main body of it on Monday, and then all I had to do yesterday was just that little thumb bit. So yeah, really quick kind of 3-day one. So yes, another finished object. I think they're just called cable design hand warmers. That's what it says on the pattern. So cable design hand warmers by the Knitting Gift Shop, Natural Knits. I don't know whether that's a collection that they have, but the Knitting Gift Shop. I think the name of the designer is actually in here as well. Trisha from the Knitting Gift Shop. There we go. I'm going to take these off now just in case they're not dry. Lay them out again. There we go. So apologies, by the way, if my voice goes. You can tell I'm back to school because I feel like I've swallowed a golf ball or something. I told my students they all had to be really nice to me because I wasn't going to shout, because the second I tried to raise my voice above like normal talking level, I just started choking immediately. And my tutor group were like, what's wrong with you? So honestly, this tea is saving me right now. Oh yeah. So, in my last podcast, I showed several scarves that I'd been making for one of my friendship groups. I have 2 more that I can now show you. I was really, really hoping to get these to their recipients before Christmas. Sadly, not all dreams come true, and they didn't make it there. This first one, I actually did finish before Christmas. It wasn't before the last post, so there was no way it was getting there, but it was finished before Christmas. So this person received theirs pretty much at the start of the new year. I wanted to get all the festive season out of the way so that it didn't get lost in the post, because I'm terrified of making something and then having it get lost in the post. But what I will say is this one, I just adored this pattern so much. I was so happy with the way this came out, and it's for my Dungeons and Dragons group, and this one was for our dungeon master, and I saw this pattern and just went, yes, I have to make this. I just have to. And I was so thrilled with it. And this is the Storm Dragon scarf. I cannot tell you how much I love this scarf. I think it's brilliant, and I can't get over it. Like I said, the second I saw the pattern, I knew it was happening. It had to happen. So this is made, let's talk about the yarn first. This is made in Malabrigo Arroyo in Cirrus Grey, which I thought was an interesting name because I actually found this to be more of a blue than a grey. But I suppose you could say it's like a kind of a metallic-y, bluey grey kind of colour. And it definitely did have like a sheen to it. So when you looked at it in certain lights, you could kind of see the shine, which actually worked perfectly for the kind of the whole pattern, because, you know, it's dragon scales. So that kind of that colour, just that ever so slight iridescence was beautiful. It was just the most gorgeous yarn. It wasn't a solid colour either. There were just some slight hints of moments where it got slightly more grey, moments where it was slightly more blue. There were kind of some silvery tones to it. It was just gorgeous. And this one was actually the recommended yarn for this pattern. And I think that's why I went for it, because when I looked at the photos, it just worked so perfectly that I almost just couldn't bring myself to use a different yarn. I wanted it to look exactly like the sample photos, and I'm so glad I did. It took a while because it was a fingering weight yarn, but actually not as long as I thought. It didn't take as long as I expected it to. Yeah, it was quite an interesting construction actually. So this one it's a lavish craft pattern. So if you saw my last podcast, this is the same person who designed the Maelstrom scarf, which was I made it in like a dark blue where it kind of twisted. That was a lovely pattern as well. They are completely different. So that one was like a really bulky yarn. Sorry, my voice is starting to crack now. It was a really bulky yarn. It was a really quick knit. Obviously this one is a lot more fiddly. It's a fingering weight. You know, there's a lot more kind of lace worky detail in there. But I think I can confidently say this one is probably the most complex pattern I've ever knitted yet. It was definitely not one that I could, you know, work out what the pattern was after a few rows and then just do it without looking at the pattern. I imagine there are probably people out there that could figure that out. For now, I'm not one of them. You know, I bow down to anybody that would be able to kind of do 1 or 2 repeats of that and then crack on. You are kind of a new species. You're kind of some kind of god, but I am not among you. So it was a really, really complicated one for my level. I would say I'm definitely like an intermediate to advanced knitter, but my confidence level with knitting just isn't quite as high as it is with crochet. I think confidence wise I'm more of a crocheter. So maybe it's the complexity, maybe it's just my own confidence levels. Maybe 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. But one of the things I did find about this pattern, it took me a while to figure out one of the features of it. So the way that this pattern is structured is that you make half of it and then put the stitches on scrap yarn, and then you make the other half so that when you have the finished scarf, the scales kind of, if you were to wear it like that, the scales would be both going downwards. You do have the option to just carry on and have it so that the scales would go up round your neck and then down. So, you know, it's not that you can't do that. You absolutely can just do it that way around. But the way that that was described in the pattern was really, I don't know, maybe it was the way I was reading it, but I didn't find that to be incredibly clear. It kind of talked about single direction versus versus both directions, and I didn't think it clarified what it meant by that. So I kind of just had to start and hope that I would figure it out as I went along, which I did. But that's not my favourite way to knit, because I really like to know roughly what I'm doing before I start. Like I said, I did figure it out, and I figured it out pretty quickly, actually, once I realised that the scales were lying in a single way. And yeah, then it's the single direction in both directions made a lot more sense after that. But it took a little bit longer than I'd have liked to figure out what the designer meant by that. So hopefully, if anybody's thinking of making that, hopefully this clarifies. If anybody's confused, the same thing I was. Yeah, so you make one, make the other, and then graft in the middle so that the scales would lie kind of that way instead of just all the same way. I did think about making it a single direction one, because I wasn't sure whether I wanted to set aside the live stitches, make another one, and then graft together. But then I thought, actually no, if I was making this for myself, I'd want the kind of the symmetry of the scales all facing downwards if I was just hanging it around my neck. So I thought, yeah, well, if I'd want that, then I'm going to at least make it the way I would have wanted to wear it, even though it's not for me. Although this one was very tempting. I think anybody that's done any knitting or crochet, when you make something that's really, really nice and it's a gift, you just kind of look at it sometimes and you're like, I could keep that. Especially since the person didn't necessarily know it was coming, for the most part. It was so tempting. It was so tempting. But I was really good and I gave it as the gift. And they really liked it. So, which I feel like they should. I feel like they should. But yeah, I thought this looked stunning. And it was really quick as well. The pattern, those scales became visible really, really quickly. Even from the first couple of rows, you could already see, you can just about see on the edge that you've got like it almost looks like scalloped edge. And within like the third or fourth row, you could see that starting to form. And those scales, especially the smaller ones, were really quick to become obvious. And I think that was one of the things that spurred me on to keep going, was that I could see it forming. Although this really bloomed in the blocking. I mean, it looked pretty good even before the blocking, but because of the way that you're shaping the stitches, especially kind of that almost like the spine down the middle, it did give it a bit of a 3D shape. And part of me wasn't sure whether to leave the 3D shape in and try and block it gently so that I wasn't stretching out the 3D, because it genuinely looked like kind of curved scales lying on top of each other. And part of me was like, do I block it firmly, as the pattern says, and flatten it all out and give it the most beautiful drape? Or do I leave do I kind of block it less firmly and leave that kind of 3D element in? Ultimately, I went with pattern and I blocked it very firmly. You kind of properly stretch this out, and I'm glad I did, actually. I think I was worried that it would lose some of it in the blocking if I was to do it really firmly, but actually I don't think it did, and I love it. It was a bit of a wrench to pop that in the envelope and send it off, but I don't know, maybe I'll make another one, maybe, once it terrifies me less. Like I said, it was kind of one of the most complicated patterns I've ever done personally, but I think it was worth it. I think that was definitely worth it. Yeah, absolutely. And I've mentioned before as well, when I make patterns, or when I make anything really, I tend to form a very, very strong association with whatever I was watching while I was making it. This one, I was doing a rewatch of Archer on Netflix. So this scarf for me, Archer, really strongly. So hey ho. I have another scarf that I finished as well. This one has also been received. This one I panicked. I thought I'd messed up. I really did. And I was a little bit worried for a second, but then I kind of just kept going with it, and I'm very glad I did. This is the Repp scarf. So the reason I thought I'd messed up on this, I can't remember what the recommended yarn is. It Shibui, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, or something else. Either way, it was a yarn I couldn't seem to find. I couldn't seem to find anywhere that sold it. I can't remember what the recommended was. It was too held together though, and I couldn't find the recommended one, so I had to start using my own judgment, which, you know, I'm perfectly fine to do, but I tend to end up in a bit of a rabbit hole, really, and sometimes I can spend hours researching this, which, to be fair, I enjoy. I went with Fiberspace's Gleam Lace in Deep Forest, which is this one here. So Fiberspace Gleam Lace, and Drops Kid Silk, which you can see. You can see the label of that one actually. So Drops Kid Silk in dark green. And I think I'm pretty sure I got the kind of the gauge of the yarn perfectly fine. I think it was just 2 lace weight yarns, and yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I can't remember whether the recommended had a kid silk, kind of a mohair in it. I don't know whether it did, but I remember getting about 10 rows in, and I couldn't really see this pattern, but those kind of diagonal stripes, I couldn't see it forming, and I thought, I've messed up here. I thought, you know, maybe the original didn't use a mohair, and maybe for good reason, and I was really worried that because I'd added that really fluffy mohair, that it was going to obscure the pattern, that you weren't going to see it, that it was just going to look like a straight knit scarf, which, you know, not a problem, but, you know, I'd made a set of gifts and I didn't want one to look significantly more simple than the others. I didn't want to make it look like I'd put loads of effort into all of them and then just none into that one. And I really liked this one as well. I thought those stripes were just really clean, really satisfying, and I thought, I've just messed this up. I thought I've just totally gone wrong with my yarn selection. And then I kind of had to have a word with myself, and I was like, look, Nicola, you've done 10 rows here. Carry on a bit, you know, actually get some of the pattern done, and then decide whether you've messed up. Yeah, it was fine. I was definitely overreacting. So I think I got one repeat of the pattern done, and I was like, yeah, this is completely fine. I don't know what I was worried about. And actually, the yarns ended up with a beautiful effect because you've got the gleam lace and then the mohair over the top. There are bits where the mohair's on top and there are bits where the mohair's behind, and it created this gorgeous kind of almost like a peacocky, shimmery, iridescent effect, and actually it was really, really nice. It's one of those where kind of you hold it in a different light and the colour just shifts ever so slightly. So actually I went from, I've picked the wrong yarn, I've totally messed this up, what am I going to do, to this yarn combination's beautiful and I've chosen exactly right, well done me. It's an emotional roller coaster over here. So actually by the kind of the first repeat, I was pretty confident with my yarn choice. So this is a Seth Richardson pattern. I think one of my others was a Seth Richardson one as well. Yeah, I think the double scarf was also a Seth Richardson design. I'm pretty sure they were designed by the same person. It was a nice repetitive one. This one was one that within, I don't even think I got through the first repeat before I figured out that I like how to do it without reading the pattern in front of me. I think this was a very quick one to figure out how to just do automatically, which after the Storm Dragon one was quite nice. It was quite a nice relief to be able to go from constantly having to kind of knit 3 stitches, look at the pattern, knit another 3, look at the pattern, to just being able to go with barely any pause. So this one went quite quickly actually, which is a relief given that I was using 2 lace weight yarns. I'm not sure why. I think because I'd bought all the yarn in the summer and kind of tried to get through the scarves as quickly as possible. For some reason in my head, I thought this was a fingering weight. And I thought this Gleam lace was a fingering weight yarn, and I can't for the life of me think why. But I must have forgotten that it was a lace weight, and I remember starting to cake it up and thinking, this yarn looks awfully thin. And I was like, oh no, I had it in my head that it was a fingering weight. I thought it was going to be really quick, and now I've got 2 lace weights and it's going to take forever. But actually it really wasn't too bad because the pattern was nice and repetitive. It was really easy to just go with. It worked up surprisingly quickly actually, so it wasn't nearly as bad as I feared it might be. The one issue I did find, and this is really, really minor in terms of issues, is that I found this one curled quite a bit. And my first thought was, it's fine, it'll block out. But actually, even after blocking, it did keep kind of curling round a little bit. That could be something to do with my blocking. Maybe I'm doing it weird. I'm not sure how you can block wrong, wet it, pin it out with obviously a gentle squeeze in the middle. So maybe it's a blocking issue, maybe it's a tension issue. I've never had curling issues so severe that they haven't been solved by blocking before. I don't know. But yeah, I did find that this one curled, which I was quite surprised at because I don't know whether you can see in the picture, there is a slight edge to it. Sorry, just trying to soothe my voice. You can see it's got a kind of a garter stitch edge to it. So I did think that would help to solve any curling issues. So maybe it's something to do with my tension. Maybe it's the way I'm twisting the yarn as I'm working it. But I think actually that reminds me, I'm probably going to tell the owner of this that if it does curl significantly, that he can just kind of dampen it and lie it out flat, and that hopefully it should flatten a little bit. I don't know, maybe just put some heavy books on it. Although I'd be worried about kind of folding a crease into it with heavy books, so I don't know. But yeah, I think that was the only issue I found with it. I did make it slightly shorter than the pattern said. It had a number of repeats that it suggested, but actually I'd pretty much reached the length I wanted to with this, so I just finished it. I think it was 1 repeat short. I think it was 17 repeats it suggested, and I did 16 or something like that. But with it being a scarf, it's kind of doesn't really matter as long as I'm happy with the length, and I thought it was plenty big enough. So that was the only modification I made for that one. So yes, the Repp scarf by Seth Richardson in Fibre Spates Gleam Lace Deep Forest and Drops Kid Silk in dark green. So I've got all the finished objects for you today. I've got so many, which kind of I think makes up for how few I've had over the last few months, because I just haven't been able to talk about these. So I'm really glad that I finally get to share some with you. I am making a 6th scarf, but I'm not going to show it to you because it's a present. I am going to show you the yarn though, although what I will say is this 6th scarf, I can't even tell you the pattern because it's one I'm designing myself. It's my first ever knit design, so that's exciting. I'm kind of expanding and broadening from just crochet to knitting and crochet, so that's very exciting. But I am using this really messy I've managed to, oh gosh, what have I done here? There we go. So I am using Knitting for Olive yarn. This is heavy merino, and I'm really glad that I'm getting the opportunity to use this because I've been wanting to try some Knitting for Olive for quite a while, and this is gonna be warm. This is gonna be so warm. I'm really excited for this. I can't remember the colour. This is the ball band, hang on. Slate grey. Oh, I should have remembered that. So this is slate grey. I will show you my tension square. It's just grey yarn. But I'm really liking the kind of the feel of it. It's got quite a nice rustic feel. It is, I'm pretty sure it is 100% merino. Let's double check. Yeah, 100% merino, traceable, non-mulesed. I'm really excited to see this one working up. I've got some of it done. I've got about that much of the scarf done, but this is going a little slower because I am designing it myself. So hopefully I'll be able to share that with you soon. But yeah, it's quite exciting. So yeah, it's got quite a nice drape to it, is what I will say about this. So I'm very excited to see how that turns out. But sadly, that is all the information you're getting. No more. What I will say before I launch fully into acquisitions is I have seen something on Instagram that I think I'm going to try for 2023. So Rachel is Knitting is the name of the account. She had suggested doing a challenge for 2023, which is the 2023 gram knitting challenge, or well, just 223 gram challenge. It doesn't have to be knitting. And I've decided I'm going to do it. So the kind of the principle behind the challenge is in 2023 you use up 2023 grams of yarn. Sounds simple. I am going to kind of take it one step further. I am going to try and use 2023 grams of yarn I already have, because I got a lot. And I think it's about time I started using some of it up. I've kind of stepped back on buying a lot. I haven't bought as much as I have in previous years over the last few months, actually, with the exception of the scarves, because they were designed and like they were planned to be a gift. But yeah, I really liked the idea of using up some of my stash. The one exception I am going to do to that is those hand warmers, because technically I did already have that from November. It just wasn't in my possession, but I knew it was coming. I knew that it was coming as a gift, so I am including the yarn for this in there. And I've even been really good. I haven't assumed that that's part of it, so I've properly kind of weighed out my yarn. So I am 29 grams down for my 2023 gram challenge. Only 1,996 grams to go. Oh well. This I'm going to count as well, because I had this already and because it's a considerable amount. But hopefully I will be able to really put a dent in my yarn stash this year. I'm hoping so, because it needs reducing. So this is the part where I go to acquisitions and tell you about all the yarn I've acquired. But in my defense, I can't think of an excuse. I'm going to start with one I bought in November. This was a Yarn and Tea Club. which is just perfect. What more could I possibly want? Yarn and tea. So this Yarn and Tea Club, it was run by Zakami Yarns in association with Pecco Tea in Edinburgh. And I had never done any kind of mystery yarn thing before. I won't say subscription because I only bought the one. But it was actually my first foray into any kind of mystery yarn thing, which I was so excited about. Like, really excited. And I even went for the cashmere one. So really, really treated myself. And what arrived was this. Now, I wish you could feel this, because this is just incredible. This feels amazing. It just feels beautiful. So it is 70% baby alpaca, 20% silk and 10% cashmere. And it's like, there just aren't words. I really wish I could convey what this feels like through the camera. So what I quite liked about this was that they had a kind of theme with it, and the theme with the November one that I bought was growth and transformation. And I thought that was really nice, especially considering I received this in December, you know, almost kind of perfectly on time for the idea of the new year. So yeah, I've not decided what I'm doing with it yet, but I have a couple of potential ideas, one or two. But I'm going to have to do something that's going to lie next to skin, because I need to take advantage of how incredible this feels. So it's going to be something next to skin, but what it is, I haven't quite decided. So I don't know whether growth and transformation is the colourway name, maybe. But yeah, so this is Zakami Yarns. This was their November Yarn and Tea Club, which came with this lovely little package from Pecco Tea. So French Earl Grey flavoured black tea. Excuse me. So it's a loose leaf. It's just a little taster box, so it's not very thick. But I really like that it tells me the temperature, brewing time, and kind of how much to use in a cup, because I'm very aware that if you brew it at the wrong temperature, sometimes it can make it really bitter. So very, very relieved at that. I nearly used this as my tea for this podcast. Very, very nearly. But I don't know. Part of me really wanted the first brew of this to be matched with me starting on this yarn. So maybe I will pair them together. But yeah, I wanted to kind of keep them together. So first acquisition, and it's just stunning. Stunning. Speaking of gorgeous feeling yarns, I also bought this one. So this is a little dinky little skein. I bought this specifically with something in mind, the name of which I've totally forgotten. Nope, it's totally gone. It's a beautiful kind of cowl. I saw it on Instagram and just went, yes, that's how. I just went to Ravelry and just bought it immediately. And so I bought myself this yarn to make it with. So this is Malabrigo. It is 100% pure mulberry silk, and again, feels stunning. I love the kind of the different tones you get. Sadly, this is not doing it justice. That is far more of like a rich bronze colour rather than the dull brown it appears to be coming through on my camera, unfortunately. But yes, very excited for that one. It's another knit. I feel like I'm neglecting my crochet of late, but hey-ho. And I'm very excited, especially since this is going to be a cowl. It's going to be right up close to skin, so that silk is just going to feel gorgeous on my neck. So that one was bought with purpose, because I knew I needed some. I really wanted something tonal for. It's got kind of like a almost like a bat wing style kind of edge. I'm at this point in the evening where the words aren't doing the things anymore. So yeah, I knew I wanted something with some tones in it, and I knew I wanted something that felt very nice with a lovely drape, and this was the one. This was the one I went for. Yeah, 100% silk. I'm really treating myself at the moment with the yarns. So another yarn acquisition. I've kind of already talked about that one did arrive since the last podcast. I think that one arrived on like the 22nd or 23rd of December. So when I was messaging people to say your scarf isn't going to be ready for Christmas, I messaged this person. I was like, okay, well, your yarn has literally just this second arrived. So yours is definitely not going to be ready. So yeah, the Knitting for Olive yarn also comes under acquisitions, as does my new yarny mug. I also have several books that I got for Christmas, several knitty books. So, oh, I forgot how heavy these are, good grief. So I've been after these for quite a while, and so I got the Vogue knitting book, which I'm very excited about, although it's deceptively heavy, this. I mean, not that I mind, that means it's got lots of stuff in it, but yeah, I remember like kind of picking this up and going, what is that? So yes, I got the Vogue knitting book, and to go with it, oh, the Stitch Dictionary. Vogue Stitch Dictionary. So I'm sorted for knitting content at the moment. Oh gosh, this is a workout on its own holding it. I don't know why these are so heavy. So yeah, those two I've wanted for quite a while, and I was very, very happy to find those on Christmas Day. I haven't had a chance to have a proper nosy yet, but once I do, I think that's probably going to be it. I don't think this scarf is going to be my last knitting pattern. I really don't. But I'm going to really enjoy looking at some of I really like the textured stitches. Those are where I find a lot of inspiration. Sometimes I'll see a stitch and be like, I want to use this in this thing and in this way, and then I just go off. So I've got a feeling there might be some patterns coming from these. Oh. I also, another knitting book. This one made me laugh quite a bit actually, but I'm really looking forward to using it. Dog jumper knitting patterns. This is going to be great. So it is specifically for kind of hound style dogs, and I just happened to have a greyhound. Not that it was a targeted gift or anything. So I think my darling Penny might be seeing a jumper coming her way. So so I'm quite looking forward to having like a proper nosy through that and seeing if I can make her a little jumper, which I think would be so cute. So a few knitting books that I got for Christmas, very exciting. I also got so my tutor group at school, we do a little Secret Santa every year, and I double check that the kids want me in their Secret Santa, because you know I'm the teacher. Do they want me involved? And they always say yes, so I'm happy to join in. And at this point, they know about my knitting, they know about my crochet, and the gift was appropriately themed. So one of my tutor group did get me some diddy little rickaroomy yarn balls. So just kind of this one, it's almost like a kind of a mint, like a really ice minty. It's got some greeny bluey tones to it. So I got those. And I also got diddy little stitch marker collection, which is really cute. So there's some sheep, there's a ball of yarn and some needles stuck into it. There's a spinning wheel, another ball of yarn and another spinning wheel. So those are really cute. I really appreciated those. They know me by now, which is it's really cute. So yeah, not a huge amount of acquisitions, and a lot of them were Christmas presents. I think that's my excuse. That's the excuse I was looking for earlier. So before I go, when I was preparing the last podcast to go on YouTube, I did realise that I said at the start I was going to do another roll for my teddy task and decide which one I was going to make next, and then I didn't do it. So I've laid out some of my teddy task possibilities on the floor, and we're going to decide which one is going to be my next teddy task. So I've got my 8-sided dice, I've got 8 possible projects, and we're going to decide which one I make next. So 2, 1, 2, elephant. I cannot remember what state of completion this is in. Okay, significantly less than the previous 2. The previous 2 were almost finished, and I just had to kind of sew some ends on. Okay, but this is a little less finished. Okay, I can work with this. All right, so next teddy task, to be finished who knows when, is this little elephant. And I know it's an elephant this time because the label says so. I'm not going to have another duck monkey disaster. This time I know it's an elephant because there's a post-it that tells me. I might have to see if there's a pattern in there because it does say Mabel and Co pattern, so maybe there is a linked pattern that I need to find. So that is my next teddy task project, and that is 8 o'clock, and I have been going for an hour. I haven't even talked about any whips at the moment. I mean, I've kind of talked about the scarf, but I had so much to share with you, and it's been really nice actually. I've really enjoyed being back at the podcasting. So yeah, I'm hoping that kind of the number of finished objects this week makes up for the kind of the continuous, well, I'm making something, but I can't tell you the number of weeks I had to do that before Christmas. But yeah, so if you've been around all this time, thank you so much. I really hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you are having a lovely January. Hope that you're not being hit by the kind of the January blues too hard. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it there for now. I'm gonna go and finish the rest of my tea. I hope you have the most lovely evening, and I will see you next time. Bye.